This is Nicholas Alexiou, Department of Sociology and the Hellenic American Project, Queen's College CUNY. And today, August 24th, 2025, we are entering the second part of the interview with a notorious researcher and archivist, Mr. MELETIOS Pouliopoulos. We are at the headquarters of the Hellenic Cultural Resources, and he's very kind to give us a tour of this unique project that he has acquired over half a century until now and going. Αγαπητέ Μελέτη, ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ που μας δίνεις την ευκαιρία να δούμε κατηδίας αυτό το πολύ σπουδαίο project που κάνεις. Well, thank you very much for your kindness to give us a tour to this magnificent and unique platform, resources that you have here in New Hampshire. Thank you very much. So let's start. Give us a sense of what the place is and what we have here.
So people always say to me about the collection, they want to know something like, what's the oldest newspaper that you have, the oldest recording that you have, what's the oldest photograph. There's all this thing about old, right? And the idea is that what you see here is just a representation of Greek American heritage. There are a lot of other small collections across the country that are very specialized. And so we have a network of independent scholars that help each other. If you need someone for television production, you know who to go to. If you need someone that helps you, that's an expert in the Balkan War, maybe you go to them. So this is how we help each other, right? So I wanted to show you, when you brought in the materials, that part of my responsibility is people donate materials to my archive here, Greek Cultural Resources, and sometimes they don't belong here. So I have to find out where are they going to go. If someone has donated textiles, folk costumes and things like that, έχουμε the Boston Lyceon Elinidon. And so we have a good relationship. So with other nonprofits, we do these things. Then sometimes I get called to help. And a part of my field work was working with Sam Chianis, who is a professor of ethnomusicology and the head of the department, of the music department up in New York. He had a huge collection, huge, massive. And I was interviewing him, and I said, Sam, what are you going to do with your collection? He says, what do you mean? I says, well, what's going to happen if something happens to you? And he says, I'm going to write another book. And he couldn't use his computer anymore. And his collection was huge, huge. 232 boxes of papers and recordings. And I have here, when he went to Greece, so Sam was a professor at the Academy of Athens. And in 1958-59, he went and he recorded in the villages. He's published a number of books. He had 4 books published, and he had 2 unpublished manuscripts. I have his logbooks of when he was in Greece. So this is a book that is of field recordings when scholars go into the field and they record. In this case, Sam was recording folk traditions, and he recorded in 1958 and 59. He continued. He was in Greece every year, but he spent a full year and in the 60s as well, 10 years later. And he was a member of the Academy of Athens, but also a performing artist himself and a scholar. So Sam had an instrument collection of 175 instruments from all over the world. His research collection, his scholarly collection was intense, because he had also dissertations of the people that he helped, all of his work. He had done projects with National Geographic. He had, it's unbelievable, his work. Well, this is a very special book that the family had given me. So what it is it's his personal log of where he was in Greece, what village he was in. This is before there was electricity. And he went with a generator, and this is Vitina, which is, the different places that he had gone to. And he recorded the songs, and he took photographs, and he interviewed the people. and he wrote these books, which are really beautiful. So I'm really pleased. Another thing that I really like, a collection that came in, and I'll show you this as we go further down into it. There's a big story behind it. And this is of a fellow who had come. His name was Andipas, but he had Peter Andes was his thing. And so, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, this is actually his scrapbook. He saved all the clippings of all the venues that he played in and around New York, of all the newspaper ads. Now, a lot of these venues aren't around anymore, but you can see order of dances. There's Agapa Mach, Akalamatyano, Maritza, and they do. And then sometimes it's funny, some of the dances that they had done, or the events that they did, he was also in the orchestra for theater performances that for very famous theater people. So Horos Perides that they had at the time. And what's nice is that he also has not only the tickets, everything that this is a history of the organizations in some respects. I think once this is fully digitized with the rest of the collection, people will be studying it for years. Now his wife that's him right there. He also had a music school. And so Peter, this is his orchestra, and you can see now where they're mixing foxtrots and things like that, back in the years where they had dance cards. So all of these this is just a very rich treasury of information. Also, what was interesting, if I can go towards the back, is that they had something about their wedding, and they showed, whoops, what do am I gonna get to it now? These are, oh yeah, so these are Western Union telegraphs and telegraphs from Greece from those years. From people from other churches, because he was involved in the church and things like that. So anyway, we have his son sent up from New Orleans had called me.
This goes back to the 30s.
Oh, this goes back to the late teens. It has pictures from 1919 in New York. But yeah, through the 20s and 30s, right up until the 1960, where he had a music school and he used to teach. And I have interviews with people from Florida, from different parts, and his son actually had called me from New Orleans and said, he introduced himself. And Steve Frangos had given me a picture a long time ago. All I had was a picture to go on, and Steve, he said, I ended up interviewing people that informed me about the picture, and now we have all these artifacts. One of the things that the traditional libraries haven't really taken care of, is the organization is material. And this I wanted to share with you, because this is just an example of something that can have great historical significance, and because it's also a history of this organization. Oops.
From Samos.
From Samos, the Pan-Samian organization. So its biographies, its histories, there's essays here, America to Greece and things like that. So these are things that have great historical, and it's something that I think a lot of this material hasn't survived. So what does survive is really important. And the Seraphim Kanoutis guides, the Helmnis guides, which are the Greek American guides. This is the very first one, which is from 1907. And not too many libraries, I think maybe Yale may have a copy of this, but there's Kanoutis. He was a lawyer, he had a
very important.
Very important. I have letters from him here. I have a letter, and but this is very interesting, because this is the Greek American Business Directory. I don't know if you can.
Odigos.
Oh, here it is, like that, yeah. And 1907. So I've copied. You can see the spine is kind of weak. I've copied some pages from it, And occasionally people will call and say, you know, can you send me the New York section or the Chicago section or something like that? So I use it for reference here. But there are other guides from all over the country. Here's the Kotakis guide, this is from Chicago, and this is part 2. There's a part 1 and part 2. This is not in any library's catalog that I found. And I think now there's a scholar down in Yale that told me 1906 from Chicago. So there were these guides that came out of the different regions. Sam had one for the people from California. When I deposited his collection at Indiana, I looked at that and I said, oh, I'd love to have that. I would love, but you had to keep it together as a collection. And so I just thought, another thing that is of interest is someone had come to the library in Manchester that we set up. I'll tell you about that later. And she brought in a telephone book of a Greek telephone book from Boston. I'd never seen this. So, of course, I looked up and saw that the publisher was the head of Omospondia at the time. And I remember him. And so this is all in Greek. It's the whole community, just like you used to have. And this is not in any library. And, you know, they even had the blue pages for where to call in Greece. So these are very, very important. And why aren't they not in the libraries? Why? I don't know. So, but they made their way here. So I'll tell you a little bit about the material that I process. If I can be careful and bring out these.
So it's typical that your research brought you to many different parts of the country.
Yes, and because, yes, absolutely.
And how you do that? You drive, you take...
I flew
planes.
and then I drive. I had gone all over. I drove mostly to Florida because I would stop off at the Library of Congress. I'd go through New York, you know, go and see a few people, go down and I'd make a research trip. And
so it's like an excursion.
It's an excursion. Steve used to come, Frangos, and we had gone and taken a couple of research trips together where he said to me, you know, I want to go and visit the graveyards. I now take people when they come. I say, you want to see the Greek cemeteries and hear the histories of the community? So I just take people out. We have beautiful history here.
And how the different communities receive you, how they see you? As a xenos, as a foreigner that somebody who is...
Well, I've always been very giving into the communities. I volunteered at a lot of their festivals to help them, so they know me. I've also gone in to film their choirs or to interview their parish members and for different things. So by the time I came around, or now they know of Greek Cultural Resources, they know that I'm the entity here in this area, this part of the country, that's trying to save this material. And there's so much of it that's around all over, and people have it in their homes, and we just need to let people know that it's very, very valuable.
So two things now. One thing that what you have described now, it shows the social character or the collective character of research.
Yes.
So if you want to expand on this.
I'd like to, yeah.
And the second thing is, why there is not a serious attempt to unify all those isolated, lone archives around the world?
Yeah, it's just I'll take the second question first, I guess. The good questions. The organizations aren't working together because I think that the academic organizations get funded through their grants, and it depends on the quality of their scholars, and if you have an amazing collection of this or an amazing collection of that.
Yeah, but we don't have a strong Greek American studies. There's no such a program yet.
Right. This is the thing.
Although we have 10, 15 Greek studies programs around the United States, they are focused mainly on Greek language, on Greek history, Greek literature, which is fine, but very few things regarding Greek Americans. Is it time that Greek American studies become an independent
No better time than this. There's a cry now for relevance. Not to say that the ancient studies weren't important. That's what we grew up with. We all studied ARCHIVIST, and that's great. And we're still studying it and still appreciating it. But we need to stitch the history. We have over 140 years here as Greek Americans. We need to say
perhaps more.
And perhaps more. If you really want to go back, yeah. There, but for the major waves of immigration that took place, yeah, and we have a lot that we have to reclaim. We have to reclaim our newspapers. We have to write our history. We have to teach that history. And now the courses that are being taught, there's very few, you know, even within the Modern Greek Studies Association. So I formed this as a non-profit because I think that for-profit things are not for this. This is not something that maybe, oh, it's nice that we do this, or we don't. We have to do this. This is our history. If these books and these newspapers that you're going to be seeing aren't in any library, cataloged in any library in the country, and some in the National Library of Greece, I know because I do research there, you know, someone's got to get really excited about this and get behind it financially too.
Yesterday you mentioned that very often you have scholars from Greece, Greek scholars,
Yes.
asking you. How do you explain that? You have more Greeks from Greece having an interest in Greek American things and not Greek Americans.
I know. I'm not sure. I think that because a lot of people here just want to assimilate, and that was their goal to just work and go to school and, you know, try to get more money and more position. And yes, okay, we're going to give to our church, and we're going to do this. We're going to have our. So they limit themselves. The community stopped talking to each other. The families, technology has ripped open the communities. When you and I were young, we went into a house, and everyone listened to the same thing. If you had a radio, it was one radio. Now everyone's, you know, off in their own space. I think the things that we remember growing up, a lot of the kids today don't have. They don't have that closeness of community. The technology has separated us into our own little thing.
And that probably connects the first part of my questions, the collectivity, the social aspect of research, right? It belongs to the public domain.
Absolutely, it belongs to the public domain. But and in this case, where other ethnic groups have stood up for their ethnic material, here in Boston, the Armenians they have established an Armenian museum, a multi-million-dollar research facility where they have an amazing collection, and they give talks and presentations. We need something like that. The Greeks in this area, being one of the oldest areas, that a lot of our material is at risk, and we're losing it.
And reveals again the real issue, which is funding.
It's funding, but it's engagement. And what happens is people, I always talk about, I want to make sure that we have a relationship with the community, that the community sees this as an archive you can draw off of. If you are doing these tapes, by the way, you have a group and you want to study something like, you know, these kinds of tapes. Ohi. Now this is interesting. So we can show these films legally, and even an organization could show these films. All they have to do is pay for a license for one night for public display. It usually used to be $100, $150, and we could really screen this material. And I'll give you interesting what comes through now that we're talking. You see that because you get these funny things. We have commercial tapes that come through, and then we have tapes that come through that people have recorded. In this case, it was of the TV, and it was from a Greek TV show from San Francisco from 1996, which is pretty neat. So we record, you know, we receive stuff that's commercial recordings. This is really special, by the way. This was released in London, and it was not licensed in America. We came through a collection. This happened to have people, very special collectors that have passed that have donated their collections to me. So here I've taken in research collections as well, beyond collections that people from all over the country will call. And what I can help and process and document, I do. So for someone that wants to learn about this is an entertaining way. Now the other day you had a student that, Nico, that was asking, and you brought in some material about Dino Anagnost and the choir, the Metropolitan Choir. So we pulled out the record, there's more recordings, but he also was interviewed as part of this documentary, which is a TV documentary, which is, and I think I saved a reference just to show you a little klipaki. You're probably gonna recognize some people here.
Hundreds of thousands of people who have done this. They're all married off. You had to watch
the Greek people in this country, and there is a tremendous outback on home that is
where we're getting.
There's Dino Agnew.
I find that there is this great appreciation.
All became Americanized, even though the Greeks kept the Greek culture, but outside of the family, all my friends were American. When I arrived at Juilliard, I was one of like maybe 2 Greek Americans there. That was it. There were no Greeks in my profession at the time. So it's very nice now to know that there's another generation behind me, or 2 generations, where we're getting more and more entering into my field. In fact, at a program that I did recently, which was for one of our happy concerts at Lincoln Center, we did a program on Mozart. And I had a little 10-year-old Greek pianist. And I had a 12-year-old Greek playing little Mozart, and it made me so proud on the stage. It was a little bit difficult.
Anagnost, the great conductor.
Yeah, isn't that nice? So it just so happens that I had digitized this recently, and when he asked the question, I'm like, oh boy, this is really incredible. So these things are all important, right? And sometimes the material, like I say, it's not just, we have homemade tapes in all kinds of formats, but also things like this, which are interesting. They're homemade records, and at one time you could have a player, in your home. They had them at the radio stations, and you could make your own records. So these are what they look like, and this says here, I believe that it's a bouzouki lesson, and they're very fragile discs, but I transfer these, and you have to be careful when you clean them and such. But I'll show you one that I did.
Is it date on that?
Yeah, no, this one says 1964. Some of them are dated and some of them aren't, and some of them go even further back with the recorded records. From the fellow with the scrapbook, Peter Andes, we have metal records, masters that are metal. And then we have recordings from the 30s. We do have recordings. I'll play one for you right now if you want to hear. So I have it on the private side of this. First this. This is kind of nice.
Για πρώτη φορά. Yes, sir, για πρώτη φορά. Η προοδευτική κοινότητα του Αγίου Γεωργίου του Λιν παρουσιάζει στο Link Community Center. Μα καλά πότε. Παρασκευή Νοεμβρίου 9. Ποιον, τι. Το πολύκροτο, το διάσημο, το απαράμιλο, το υπέροχο, το ασυναγώνιστο, το μελωδικότατο τρίο Μπελκάντο. Μόνο του. Όχι, βρε αδερφέ. Μαζί του εμφανίζεται ο βασιλιάς του τραγουδιού, ο άσος της ευθυμίας, ο ανυπέρβλητος Νίκος Γούναρης. Δεν τη συνδυασμός. Περίμενετε, δεν καρδιώσα. Εκτός του Γούναρη και του τρίο Μπελκάντο, θα βρίσκεται στο χορό του Λι και το μουσικό συγκρότημα του Γιώργου Στράτη από τη Νέα Υόρκη και η Original Karakis Orchestra. Δηλαδή, και με άλλα λόγια, αγαπητοί μου ακροατές, πρόκειται για ένα πολύ εξαιρετικό, πρωτάκουστο μπορεί να πει κανείς γλέντι στα φωνικά της περιφερείας. Και μην ξεχνάς ότι θα υπάρχει αυθονία μεζέτων, κοντών.
So this is, these are kind of interesting, but as you know, there's other things too that we have that are great, and I wanted to show you that this, if it can come up, this is the recording of, now we brought in some reel-to-reel tapes.
Του Οικουμενικού Πατριάρχου Κυρίου Αθηναγόρα, μήνυμα προς των ιερών κλήρων και το χριστεπώνυμο πλήρωμα της Ορθοδόξου Ελληνικής Αρχιεπισκοπής Αμερικής, Βορείου και Νοτίου, επί το Αγίο Πάσχα του 1959.
Ύμνους επινικίους και ένοδοξολογίας αναπέμπει και πάλιν κατά την πανέορτον ταύτην ημέραν η μήτηρ εκκλησία.
So these are
This is from
very
1959.
yeah. And I mean the archdiocese doesn't have these recordings. We have recordings of this type all across the country. This TV program that I had, even though it was from here, we have ones that it was from the West Coast. If you look, there's always, it's the same format. You know, there's the church people are around. You know, it's going to play
Τι
for us.
κάνετε αγαπητοί, είστε καλά, πηγαίνετε, πώς θα περάσατε αυτή τη εβδομάδα.
He's passed away now. This is a little back
Και πώς θα το περάσετε αγαπητοί αύριο.
These are important moments. These TV programs and these radio programs and their snippets are all historical. I don't know if this is going to play now.
Λίγο και στο Bay Area να μας βοηθήσουν για αυτή την εκδήλωση και
Interviews, their ads, So, what else do we have to do, right? So there are all kinds of formats.
So let's say a few things about
The immigrants and when they came over.
and the musical thing and
Well, they bought-
entertainment that they started recording here music, Rebetika primarily, but not only Rebetika.
Not primarily. No, the Rebetika, just like in Greece, was a very, very small part of the music. If you look at and the reason we know that is that we can study the catalogs. Just some examples of catalogs and ephemera that we have that allow us to document periods of time. You know? But so we can study. We have the recordings, but you can see that these are record catalogs of different labels and things that were here. But there was a variety of music. They had religious music. They had comedy. There's a huge comic tradition of recorded sound. They did karaoke. They recorded the early stuff. The Rebetika per se. A lot of the recordings were coming from 1905, 1906. 1910 they had done field recordings in Europe and they released the masters here. So we had the music of the Middle East and that Cafe Aman kind of thing and the early music like that had already come here via records masters from Greece. Or from Turkey, or from wherever they were recording. Here, though, the people did bring their traditions, and some of them went in and sang folk songs. They recorded what they could. There were songs that were sung that were patriotic songs. They were emvatiria, a lot of marches. When the part of the Ahepa's history and the Gapa's history are, they have recorded theme songs and sheet music and things like that we've completely lost. Our whole sheet music tradition, our whole music, because people were learning music at the time. The other
So
thing,
the Greeks not only came here to work hard in the factories, in the railroads, in other venues, whatever, restaurants, but also they brought their music, their instruments.
well, they brought all the
So
traditions.
music and ethike, ethima and traditions, they help them to, toward issues regarding ethnic identity, ethnic sense of community. Right? So this is how the communities were kept together.
That's how the houses
It's not
were,
only
right?
just work.
Yeah.
Some of them never went back. So they stayed here, at least the early immigrants. Although the Greeks have a high percentage of sojourners, but a lot of people, and the early immigration, as you know, was basically male immigration. And the music or the entertainment play a significant role.
Oh, absolutely. It played it played a big role in the home. It's a big role in the church. It touches all parts of our lives, and so it's and the Greeks played a lot of their music. There were studies that were being done, record sales that showed that the immigrants by records have been. I could show you the studies that were done by Pekka Gronau, who's the researcher.
And then we see a series of touring. You have Greek groups like, as we saw, Trio Belcano, a very famous group at its time,
Yeah.
or very famous performers, as Gunaris and others.
Yeah.
But this is shows some kind of networking.
Oh yeah.
So although the Greeks were heavy in hard work here, how this networking was developed to bring someone, to bring groups, either in theater, in dance, in music, is not an easy thing, given that it's not just an aeroplane jet to bring you back and forth. It was more difficult. Give us a sense of all this.
Yeah, exactly. So the business records are very important to get understandings of this. We have some business records here, both from people who used to bring people over, artists over, to having them make TV and radio appearances. Really, the early radio, Greeks were on the radio as early as the 20s, the late 20s. And they were invited by cards, by regular mail, the artists, and so they walked right into the studios. We know from the interviews that were done, again with Steve Frangos, who had done a great deal of research in this area. He interviewed Cafe Amana performers, people who were playing in the clubs in the 20s and 30s. And he wrote a series of articles in the Greek American, and he has deposited his tapes so people can listen to these tapes. I go back and I listen to them because I learned so much. There is no
public access to.
He's made not all of his field work available, but a great deal of it is available through Florida Memory. He deposited there. I received tapes with interviews with Katsaros and Yanaros right from Indiana University. They're still available, but I had to pay. Afterwards, Steve and I became friends years later. I'd been following Steve for a long time. And so, we were more sharing that way. But we have to be careful because you're right. How do scholars get to this material? If someone calls me and they say, I want to know about Rebetika, well, I ask them, where have they looked? Because I can't write the whole picture for them. There's so much information that's already been done. I can help them to do the research and say, here's where you look, and look here, and listen to this. And then let me know. But all of that is very important. There's a whole form of music. I just wanted to bring this up. We're talking about history here. There was the phenomena of the piano roll. And the reason I bring this up is that it was the earliest unique form of recorded music.
You have an article, I think.
Yes, I did. I commissioned a study. I was part of my field work was finding the company QRS, which has been around for about 100 years, and you put these onto pianos and you pump with your, it's air in the traditional piano, and if you open this up, if you can hold that, and it unrolls, you'll see that they had the lyrics in Greek. So you're watching the paper, and these holes that are punched, the air would press the piano to make the sound. And this is what, you could sit and read. It was like early form of karaoke. And I don't know which one did we pick here.
And how do you play this?
Well, what you do, I'll show you. You want to see?
Yeah, of course.
I've got a video about it. So I spent 3 days in upstate New York with a fellow who's just passed away, Bob Berkman, who was a very nice man, very good musician. He had quite a story to tell. He was the historian for QRS. He was also on National Public Radio, and I think he appeared on Channel 5, and I had contacted him because someone here from a store donated a box of piano rolls. There was nothing on the internet of Greek piano rolls. I knew nothing about it.
Those used to be sold, how they acquire those things?
So the Greek Americans? They would go, the company QRS was up in Chicago, but then they had offices in New York and San Francisco and they would buy them in the music stores. So just like you would go and get your sheet music, which I can show you, I have a huge collection of sheet music. I'd love to bring that over because they tie in with the photographs.
And instead of playing a record, the gramophone or a pickup,
Yeah.
you buy the paper.
You buy the paper, you have a machine, and
They were expensive or more expensive, less?
No, they were the same price. They were about $1 as you would pay for a record at the time, $1 to $1.50. I'll show you. I think I have it on.
So this is an American way to play music, or it was a widespread thing around in other countries?
Before radios came, no, but it is available in other countries. Greece didn't have anything that I know of, but it is in other countries. Let me show you. Oh yeah, this is great. So when I did my study, I wanted to see, I learned as much as I could about this, how these were made, and also in the case, sometimes someone would go into the studio and play and it would create the role. Other times they just sent sheet music and there would be hole punchers that would punch the hole, and it was kind of like so here's what it's not on YouTube, available on YouTube, it's just where I have streamed it. So he loads the thing up here. Actually, you know something? Let me go right to the field work, and you'd see better this way. I had two cameras running. Oh, that's too fast.
So people had a piano like this, a special piano in their homes?
Yeah, there was in their homes, it was in the bars and the restaurants. My grandfather had a restaurant that had one, had a little bar that had one in the corner. It was broken down. When I was a kid, I remember seeing these player pianos. But by World War II, the radio had really come to rise, and the radio production, after the electronic microphone had come out in the 20s, the radio really took rise, and then the piano rolls became less popular. And people were still studying. They had sheet music like this. I show you here. These are from, this is a newspaper from Kirikatika Nea. This is pretty something else. But I gotta bring that downstairs. Oh yeah.
Ethnikos Ύμνος.
This was issued by the Atlantis, or Gerodimos, right? And the Ethnikos Ύμνος here. This is from Andrea Pongis' publishing house in New York. He was a musician who came, he was a violinist. A lot of them taught. The ones that could write music did this. They wrote, and they wrote down the folk music. That's why these are so valuable. It gives us insight.
So they're Greek Americans?
No, they're Greeks, right from Greece.
They're from Greece?
Here in America, I mean, we also have Greek sheet music, but in those years, there was a lot of people studying.
But the companies who published this, who produced that, they're American companies?
No, there were Greek-owned companies.
You have a range of Greek companies in America?
Yes.
Creating Greek music?
Yes.
Which means that there is a large audience to do that.
Oh yeah, the audience was like I say, if I could show you the statistics that shows how in 1 year they had done a study to say by population segment, by ethnic segment, the Greeks were one of the highest ones, lowest in population numbers, but they bought more records.
Yeah, because I want to come to the issue of discrimination and marginalization, because it is a lot of times people say, oh, the Greeks, they were under attack here and there, but from what we see, since the early years of immigration, the Greeks were able and free to express their wishes regarding work, community, and music. Do you see community which is under attack, or this is just a theoretical?
When people say
we have cases,
Yeah.
of course,
what happened?
but overall,
the earlier immigrant groups try to oppress the new immigrants. It's still going on.
regardless of ethnicity,
No, yeah, regardless of ethnicity, when the Greeks
not specifically
came over,
against Greeks, of course.
No,
right?
well, actually, it's just something. I can never understand hate or that kind of thing. But the Irish used to fight with the Greeks.
Yeah, there is a book how the Irish became white. It took them more than 100 years in sociology. There is
Really?
a book like that. Yeah.
Well, my uncles, most of the older Greeks, now they're all died off. All my uncles are dead. But they remembered that when they were boys, they would have to fight in the street. They would go and they'd yell at them, "You greasy Greeks!" They were called names and stuff, on the street, and they throw rocks at them. It was tough. So there was discrimination, and every segment now. It's funny how many Greeks now say to take this anti-immigration stance. This that's been going on. They just forget where they came from. They completely forgot that they're immigrants. They forgot their who they are. So back to your point about
because those immigrants they managed, the early immigrants, they managed to go from discrimination to acceptance.
Right.
So that's why we need to pay some respect to.
I think we have to look at our accomplishments too, what we've done, the things that how we've integrated into society. We always say we're part of the American fabric, but that's not been described. We've not written our heroes. Our children don't know our heroes. This is a new area, and there's so much information available, that we're losing, but it can be made available to people. This is what we need to do.
And it's not only the rich and famous, but the community, as you said, the communities, the ordinary people
have to get engaged. They have to get involved. They like to consume the culture. They like to consume their heritage. Today, we're going to go and see a nice Greek festival, Opa. Everything's great, rah, rah, rah. But in the end, if you're throwing...
But now, where they enjoy upper middle class status and socioeconomic mobility, but not knowing what happened in between until that, right?
Right, exactly. They've lost their compass.
Your research and people who do research like you, it's important to be recognized, disseminated.
I don't know, Nick. I mean, for me, I think...
Why it is important to know about Greek American history?
Why? Because we've accomplished quite a bit. Why? Because our culture is beautiful. And we have, just as the folks, if you just take folk music, for example, that how it developed in Greece and how it was historic there, it's historic here. There were folk songs, there was music composed here around social events. You know that from the rebetika genre, but from other genres and things like that. So we have a very, very beautiful heritage. We have a beautiful literary heritage. If I could show you these magazines, I'm embarrassed. I read these scholarly magazines from the early 60s, and their level of Greek and their level of understanding was much higher than society's level now. It's almost like we're in some ways we've dumbed down. Why wouldn't we want to access the knowledge of previous generations? Why wouldn't we want to document these photos? And it's funny how.
And why they don't teach it to?
Why don't they teach
Greek American schools?
Well, they should.
Yeah.
Because when I was a young boy, the Greek people got together and said, "We want our children to learn Greek in school," and they fought and they had a class. I had Greek in high school as an elective.
Here in.
We had and we learned at the time the polytonico systema and all of that, and but it was beautiful. It was offered in the school. Now the churches have played a very big role at continuing the culture and education. That's why we do this project at St. George. I had gone to give a talk there, and the community was so receptive, and I grew up there. I said, well, why don't we start a library and bring our things in? And people bring in things. In fact, we go back later, I'm going to bring back a box of things as we bring things to process. But, yeah, so the picture is very rich. It's still there's still so much that has to be described. So this is a curated collection. So I can take you through pieces of it, show you pieces of it.
Let's start seeing things.
Yeah, so this
more things.
It's funny how the material comes together, and I wanted to show you first, if I could, before we go to this. This is what I didn't know. That's from a newspaper called the Kyriakati Kanea, but you probably
Published where?
Published in Boston for 10 years. It's not been digitized. And the publisher's daughter, one of the publisher's daughters, said to me, you know, if you'd like to digitize it sometimes, that would be great. I said, well, I hadn't seen a copy of it, but I had a tape. I'm going to show you what another thing that I had done downstairs that recorded. This, what happened when I was going through this? Let's see if I can.
Λήψεις και οδύνη μεγάλη συνέχεια την ψυχή όλων μας για την απροσδόκητον και απίστευτον δολοφονία του Προέδρου.
This is a tape that I have, and I was recording. I didn't know
this is that bishop.
This is the bishop at the time who was visiting the area. I learned it because it was in here. This is all about the thing that...
The assassination of Kennedy.
See this thing up here that says, you know, this is it.
Δολοφονήθη κατά βάρβαρων τρόπων. Θλίψεις επίσης άφατος διακατέχει την ψυχή μας.
So this is how material is connected in the archive. This was donated, that came through years ago, and then this came through.
Το προσδόκητον αυτό συμβάν
we can document
πρέπει
this.
να μας υπενθυμίζει ότι όλα τα πράγματα δεν είναι τέλεια στην κοινωνία και τον κόσμο μας.
We know that. So this is interesting too. Look at this. This is something that was transferred. This is a very early Greek parade. So this is a silent, not parade, a picnic.
Picnic. The first.
Yeah.
Of this community in '57.
Yeah, in Connecticut, and and this priest, I found his family. They live in Nashua, so when I was digitizing this, they were, and so the Greek sailors were there, and they were marrying them off. You know, it's really kind of funny. But now this is what the festivals used to be like. You know, you would just go, and everyone would bring something, and they, you could see that at one point they're dancing around, and you know, it's kind of things. But this is what they were like, you know, and they, you know, there's a small little orchestra, and they're doing their thing, and, you know, and people are dancing and doing their, and now the sailors, this is where they were marrying off they grabbed these sailors that were there, and there was like a matchmaker, and he was saying, okay, you come over here, you over here, and several people were married. They're still alive, you know, their families are still alive anyway to tell the story. So then he lined them all up, and yeah, it was kind of cute, you know. So you never know where there are these little things of history that we got to do. Once they're digitized, then they've got to be made available. And this is the other problem, that the existing institutions have not saved a lot of our material. They've not described it or cataloged it. So we all have, I'm sure you have in your institution, I have it here. People say, oh, is everything digitized? Yanni had said, oh, is all that digitized? No, not yet. It takes hours and hours and hours. And so we have to be selective. We have to go for the material that's at risk, but we need funding, because, you know, this is the thing.
How people can fund you?
Well, on the website, there's a button, and they can just make a donation right online, or they can write a check. We have done campaigns. We just did a beautiful campaign in Manchester. It was Raise a Glass to Greek American Heritage, and it was a wine tasting and benefit. It was very, very successful, so I'm happy for that. But yeah, any individual donations are very.
It is tax
deductible donations. Yeah.
It's easy.
It's easy. It's very easy. Well, I'm a part of a non-profit umbrella called Fractured Atlas. My plan is that I want to have my own non-profit, but I've been funding this a lot on my own. So that's why we need to move this into an institution. And I'm saying we need our own here in New England. There's so much material, and there's a whole wealth of schools, and someone that's going to take this philosophy, forward.
Queen's College is ready to.
Queen's College could be the place too, and we continue our conversations and see, because the community might not be ready. Years ago I remember standing up and talking about the internet in my corporate life before anyone knew what the internet was. And they sent me to Greece as an internet consultant when cell phones were just coming in.
Dream came true.
Yeah, it's a dream. It was a dream come true. It was. But also that I was able to see the adoption of a technology within the culture. At the time, the Statharate were horrible. You couldn't get a line out. If you went to a periptero and you tried to make a phone call, they would cut the line and they'd say, I'm sorry, they'd interrupt your call. Now people had cell phones, and GSM was better than America, because America was on a different, this old technology network. So it was interesting. It was very interesting. But I'd like to bridge the history gap that we have, and I think we all have to work, and we all have to support each other, and that's what we have to do, and bring forward the great artists. So it's sometimes the material that I receive is mixed, and this is a research collection that I had taken in, where someone had gone. There was a few people. These are photos from this one's from 1930. And of Eptahori, the Horio Eptahori, and this photo was taken August 16th, 1931, outside of Manchester, New Hampshire. And what they did was they put a number on everyone, and then they listed who was in the photo, as much as they knew at the time. And this was research that was done, a project that was done over 20 years ago, and now is coming to me. They did 1931, 1932, 1934. These historical photos. This one, it's also from Eptahori. And this one here, yeah, they're all from Eptahori. Okay. Then, received this information from a woman that her father-in-law was one of the founders of the AHEPA here in America and in Boston. Very, very active. But also she had this very rare scrapbook, photo book, I guess it's what we would say, where this is Pavlo Melas's sister. So this is the photo album, personal photo album of Anna Mela Papadopoulou, who was the sister of Pavlos Melas. She had enlisted in the Greek army and served through the Balkan Wars and a number of wars. And they actually, the woman who sent in her photo album sent in this article from 1929, and newspaper clippings going that far back about her work and what she had done, at the time. She was a heroine. She's a heroine of Greece. And here is her personal photo album with I'm not able to read this, so I'd have to have it translated or interpreted. I have a hard time sometimes with handwriting, but it's all here. And there's personal photos in here. There's photos of these homes that I'm not sure who they are. I think this is an example of something that I would not keep here. I would try to get back to a museum in Greece. There are people here that I don't know. So this is the, it's very interesting. Very nice to receive something like this. Very well taken care of. And so I keep these things. Who these people are, we don't know. Oh, I wanted you to see that. The oversized material, I'm able, like the oversized photos, I'm able to take over here to the scanner, and this is what I'd use for the newspaper project, which was, this is a full flatbed scanner that can handle a regular sized newspaper, or a big picture, or that sort of thing. What I can handle, I send out, and that goes for any material that I just can't process here because of the type. So that's it for in here, I think. So part of my work here is in digitizing different material that comes in. This is a VHS recording of the Brick Bottom reunion. And Brick Bottom was a section of Somerville, Massachusetts, where the first immigrants came from Asia Minor. The early immigrants came and settled there. And this would be in the 1920s, and they formed a beautiful church, and they have dances. This is Kostas Makridis, who is still alive and still performing today, and they would have dances where they would play Aptalika and a lot of Asia Minor music, a lot of this, and still today when you go to their church and their festivals, they have organizations, and they're very proud of their history. And so this is really nice to be digitizing this. So whoever recorded this, or recorded the speeches and the mingling before, and now it was almost like a horosporida that they did. I don't know. Here we are in the entertainment part of the night. It's very exciting to see. So the newspapers play are very important that we save these. A lot of the newspapers that are here, some of them are over 100 years old and aren't in any libraries at all. So, the big newspaper that's still around is the Ethnikos Kyrgyz, the National Herald. What we have here that is not in their archives is their first edition. Which I'll show you here. I mean, we have other things that are not in their archives. I just thought this would be very interesting. This is the Monthly Illustrated from 1915, Volume 1, Issue number 1. So this is very interesting. The old newspapers, some of these come in bomb volumes. The Atlantis is here. There's also, do I see it here? This newspaper here was published by Divri. Now Divri had books. And in the other room, I can show you the DB books. A lot of people know they're one of the big publishers in New York. This is a newspaper published in New York that is not cataloged in any library in the country. It's here. And it's got incredible history in it. So why, I asked the question, why are our newspapers, why haven't they been saved by the libraries, even the school libraries? What were they focusing on? What happened? Do they still have these? Are they in the basement somewhere? And I think what we have to do, if we look at the Greek press and see what we have that's been already put onto microfilm, is that microfilm available? I know for a fact, and I've done a study, that a lot of the film has not been digitized, and we can do that, and we're doing some of that here. So it's also interesting to note there were other smaller newspapers along with the big national newspapers, the three that I showed you, Atlantis, the Ethnikos Kyrgyz, and the Olympia. There were other newspapers as well that were around. These are ones that are from New York. This one's from the years of the Balkan Wars. Again, these magazines are not in, these particular issues are not cataloged in any library in the country from 1913. 1912, and they brought back photos and stories from Greece that of the Balkan War era. It's fascinating. Here's an anti-junta newspaper from 1967 that was from New York, and there it goes on and on. There was another. There's so much lost history on this. Here is even newspapers from Greece. This is when, back in the Athens News in 1974, and this is what made the news then. So the press papers, a lot of them that people used to pick up and throw out, some of them are in the libraries, some of them have not been digitized, and some end up in private collections, like in here. Here's a magazine of short stories that was published by the Ethnikos Kyriaks, but it's not part of their archive. And this particular issue, Monthly Illustrated Magazine, Volume 1, Number 2, from January of 1923. And boy, you learn history, you have language reinforcement, and context, historical context, that we can only get from these kinds of documents. How else are we going to understand or write our history if we can't talk to the people of that generation? One of the projects that I did was to digitize the National Herald of the Hellenic Chronicle newspaper, which published for 50 years. It was a national newspaper that started in 1950. What's significant about this is that not only did it have the history of the church and the communities and the organizations on a national level, it also had the first generation, when I say that, the early immigrants, my grandparents' generation, the people who built the institutions that a lot of us stand on top of. And we stand on the shoulders of this great, great generation that came and worked so hard. Their stories are there, their histories. It's immensely valuable. It was used for the Ahepa book by Alexander Kitrov, so I'm very pleased that we've got that one done. But there's a lot more work that we have to do. The Greek American magazines, the publications, this is the Greek accent from 1980 through 1989, and boy, what a great magazine. I mean, I think that Professor Alexiou will remember when he first came that this is of interest, right? There are scholars who call me, and sometimes they have, I'm looking for this article on, and they give me give me the year, or they'll know the month, or they don't know the page. So I have to go and look in the physical archive. I've not digitized all of this. What I'm planning to do is to scan the indexes of all of these papers, and to provide another level of information for people that are looking, that want to. We have so much more to put up on the shelf, but this is a good start. Part of the collections that come in, because the organizations, again, for one reason or another, this is the Ahepa and Daughters of Penelope from 1949 to about 1960, and their files from national and local through a chapter in Massachusetts that it came through. Everything from their record books, their meeting books, to their correspondence and their plays with the U.S. government and whatever they were doing at the time. Organizational material goes on and on. There's very interesting, I want to be very careful here because of this, but we've taken in what I believe to be the largest collection of Goya material for the Greek Orthodox Youth of America. And if we look, these are the Atlantis magazines. Somewhere I have the Goya magazines out. But if not, this is their directory. And you can see their conference material, their books, their national magazines. They're all here. And they are just waiting to be, digitized. But it's a huge collection. There's several boxes. The problem is I can't put everything all together. Here is their national magazine. Now this is the Goya at the time was doing fundraising for Greece. This was how they were organized on a national level when I was growing up. These magazines, I look at the level of writing in them, and they're just incredible. So it has, every issue and the stories that are in them. So I'm very, very happy we have this collection. We've digitized these. We had an intern that came and studied the collection, He studied at I didn't give him the early newspapers, but I gave him, you know, he cataloged a lot of this, which is, I'm very pleased. He did great work, a nice presentation. So these I put back in the box, and again, if someone needs a better quality scan of what I've already done, we can do that. They need more information, it's here. There's photographs going back, and all kinds of materials. So it's nice to see that we're an organization that played such a major role in Greek American life. Very nice to see that. We're lucky that, you know, the magazine, the newspapers, some of them are loose, as you can see here. This is 1912. You know, the Atlantis went back even further than the Ethnicoskytics. And what's nice is to have bound volumes, because the pages are clean and you have everything. And in these cases, this was someone had picked this up at a yard sale and paid $10 for these. And the paid newspaper that I showed you, that's not in any place in any country, any library in the country. So this is really interesting. And I had received, this is from, we're looking at the Atlantis newspaper 1913 and 1914. So the photographs and the stories are invaluable. It's all in Greek. The pages haven't yellowed so far, and part of keeping the environment here climate controlled is it's an ongoing and a very expensive kind of thing to do, but it's necessary. It's necessary when you have material to try to digitize anything that's at risk, to place it in non-acidic, special archival, in some cases, slips. And when I'm going through here now, if I see something, I make a note of it and I share it. But oftentimes what draws us to the historical papers is a targeted study or a period in time, a historical moment. What happened at the time of the Balkan War? What happened with the Greeks here? How were they received? What was going on? We go through those years. So this is becoming a reading room of this sort of material. I'm going to be careful, leave this out, because putting it up, there's so many newspapers that they don't all fit here. And when we go downstairs, I'll show you another collection of bound volumes that ran for 10 years. And yet they need to get to be shared. So the earliest records before in the acoustic era, they were players that played like this, where you would crank and you put on a record and you play one record at a time. And some of them had horns, and some of them the sound came out, and then some of them had chambers where they would resonate, the sound would resonate. So this is just one of those old players. There's several of these and other kinds of equipment around the house. This is an old storage from the same period where people would store their records, and you would have a place where you put your needles. The needles are here, and you can only use them. These you can use more than once, but no, there's none in here. But so these are little places where you could put your records, you know, to organize your collection, and you would have a place where you could put your needles, in your old needles. I think I have needles in here. This is a collection, part of a collection that I picked up over 20 years ago, and it was a family that owned a Greek diner. And in the 40s and 50s, they had a jukebox that used to play 78 records, RPM records, on the jukebox. But they had these tins, which this old tin for oil, and they filled it with records. So these, I left them like this. They're American records, but they're in perfect condition. The Greek collection I put in downstairs, you know, with the Greek records. But she says, "Do you want these American ones?" I said, "Sure. If we're playing these in the diner, this is a snapshot in time. Let's do it." So she's and I had these in the closet for the longest time, and my sister Christina says to me, why don't you take them out and display them? They're so interesting, you know? And this one I think a little bit more recent, and she had 45s in here, but it was the 78s that she said that they played on the jukebox in the diner. And the diner's no more. So that was just a little something I wanted to show you. So I guess we're in one of the oldest parts of the archive here of recorded sound. And I say recorded sound because, well, it could be old radio broadcasts, it could be anything. Now, the commercial records I've taken to file by company and label. And the formats really, there was a 12-inch format, and these are the big records. They're the size of what later became LPs. And this is Kyriakoulis recording on Columbia Records, and these are records made in New York. And what's nice about this is that we try to compare to the catalogs to see what recordings we're missing, and we find that, you know, I have here in the archive.
And as we said, Kyriakoulis was not only a great singer, but also a businesswoman.
She was a businesswoman.
Before 1920s.
Yes, she went out and formed her own company, Pan Hellenion. We have those records here as well.
Yeah, until the war, until the Second World War.
Really, she had a comeback. She had another company that she came back with, right? You know, these comebacks sometimes weren't as good as.
Papagika, which was another great performer and voice.
She was a very important figure as well. She had sang and recorded all different types of music, from folk music to traditional, to marches, to European music, and she just had such a range. So it's kind of interesting. And then
singing for the soldiers and.
Yes, she actually did, and there was rallies that she went on and sang songs to try to get people to go back and fight for Greece. And we have some of those articles and some of those music as well, which is kind of interesting.
Can you give us a rough estimate of how many records do you have here?
I can't, unfortunately, because it's the collection's only about 20% described. I've cataloged over 4,000 just of these. I tell you that when we did the project at Indiana University, we deposited 2,000 recordings. About 1,200 of them were from here. So already 1,200 records have left. So there's a lot. There's a lot everywhere. You've seen, this is not just one space. So and again, I want to say that the collection reflects, there's so many other collections out there, people who have specialized in certain things, in recorded sound and videos and things like that. We've got to make the material available, make sure it survives. We just lost another person who did a Greek TV program for over 50 years. He's interviewed everybody. And his archive, what's going to happen to it? What will they do to it? Will it survive? I've seen so many things get lost over the years that I have to be concerned. I've seen so many libraries that have refused me or others access that I have to be concerned. And I think we all need to work together. So anyway, this is so much fun. This is really great. I'm glad that you're here and we can show you these things. This is one of the work areas that I have. Dying to show you this. It's a little, and pardon, but you caught me in the middle of a move. We're rearranging the archive. I had to swallow the pill that said that I couldn't have everything all of one type in the same place. I can't have all my records together in one place. I can't have all my newspapers. We just came up from looking at the newspapers, and even though we're in the recorded sound part of the library, I've got to take you now and show you and tell you a story about this newspaper, because it's 10 years of bound volumes. They were heading for the trash. And a friend of mine called from Boston, and he said, you know, are you still interested in the newspapers? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, usually I'm thinking there's a couple of smelly newspapers in a box. He says, well, we better come. He says, because the janitor's about ready to throw them out. And they're bound volumes of this newspaper that was popular here. It was a national newspaper published out of Boston for 10 years, and it was called the Hellenic Voice. And it was, so this is every single issue of this newspaper. And so again, it's part of our, you know, the history of our community and the history of our culture, of our people here, of the Greek American things. These are very, very important documents. These are not in Google searches, and if they're not in the libraries and available, why not? We've got to do that, and that takes time and money and engagement. And I think the more teachers that stand up and want to teach the material, and more parents and more of the community that stands up, the more interesting, the more it comes together. This may look kind of a messy thing, but processing reel-to-reel tapes is a very delicate process, because a lot of the tapes are so old, they're brittle and they break on the player. So these are tapes that I received from New York. I can open this up, I hope. And they happen to be in very good condition. And this is the program of the Kambana for this. So this had the parade, this had Malafouris on it, and this is from 1968. So this came from John Nataxis's collection. His father in New York had recorded the radio in 1968, and we have the radio program. So we would put it on here and digitize it to record it to a disc, a master disc. Then I bring that upstairs to the computers, and if there's any ephemera, any paper or anything the camera else that can identify, we would always take pictures or scan those objects and put them in the folder. Then if there's an interview that goes with it, then we would have to include the interview and any photographs, anything like that. And that's the archiving process. That's part of identifying, you know, the material. Sometimes, most of the times, a lot of this material, especially the whole main material, doesn't have anything on it. And for instance, I'm just going to reach down there. As I see, I took these out because they are of concern. So, yeah, these are old radio ads. Oh, here's an interesting one. I think you're going to like this a lot. One of the big songs of the Rebetiko genre here in America was the song, and you'll know it, Ta παιδιά της γειτονιάς σου με πειράζουνε, right? Marika Papagika.
It came from Asia Minor.
Yeah. So everyone has put a date on it for the recording that Marika Papagika did, and there was one that was done on Kula's label before that with some different lyrics, and it's pretty intense. I can't put a little bit, but you know, it's interesting. We just lost this clarinet player, Petrolukos Chalkias, and this is a private record that they did with whenever it was in the 70s, I believe. Does it have a date? 1977. And it's too bad that he's not around so that we could ask him about it. We had recordings of his father. We have video recordings that have been donated, but now you can see him in his 1970s shirt. So anyway, I wanted to show you some of this side of the processing that goes on. Whether I'm able to handle various formats. This is an 8-track tape player. This is, you know, where I can record different formats. Upstairs is the video, downstairs is the sound.
Do you know the date of that and what the name?
Oh, the Mad Greek Steakhouse out of Chicago. Yeah, you know something? I think this is Polypano. That they had recorded them, but they didn't put their names on the records. So yeah, it's pretty funny. This is very interesting. Yeah, you picked out some good things. So George Kolaxizis, Theodoros Lemonopoulos on bouzouki. Yeah, this is really great. So this is a collection, one collection that was received of 45 records was the collection of Greg Brown. Greg was a friend of Dino Pappas, who is considered the father of Greek discography. And Dino had taught a lot of people, and Greg had learned a cataloging technique from Dino. And this collection have about 2,800 records, 45s, unique 45s. He had all in order and he had all cataloged. Now my own collection, which there's probably at least 3,000 that are waiting to be put in and cataloged. And there are various types, by the way. So there are some religious ones that were done. A lot of these are records that were recorded in Greece and released here. And independent labels, major labels and independent labels. So this is a very significant collection. Before I had received Greg's collection, taken in Greg's collection from his sister, I had my own organization for the 45s. Again, the same way, they were but a record company and number. So each Odeon record, I decided to put mine in binders, but then I have, like I say, a couple of thousand that have not been cataloged, but I know that they're unique to his collection. So somehow these have to be merged, and somehow I need the space to be able to take everything out.
We have it.
You have the space. There's 5 different radio stations between here and New York, combined collections. Some of them have master discs. In the case of the record store that was in Boston, he had recorded Tony Maruda, he had recorded people and made records. We have the master discs here. But what we have in the radio station collection, here's one that was from just fairly recent, actually, from 1990. This part of the collection is from 1993 and 1997. This man had taken and had made cassettes, and he has all of his programs, all of his program notes are here, and all of the people he interviewed, and his actual programs. He recorded everything. So now, again, history of community, history of organizations, little snapshots in history, and it's really great. It's really wonderful. We have some the programs from New York, radio programs from the 70s that were really great. Nikos Tsaparis' family had donated 10 radio programs that were made in Astoria, and they're so, because Nikos Tsaparis was a satirist. He had satire. He was very, very funny and witty, and they were all in Greek. Just great programs. So we had time to play some of those.
Since you talk about historical things, I always admire the history of one song, Mr. Lou.
Yes.
That was recorded, in different eras by different groups all over the world, and American groups. One great version is by the Beach Boys.
Yes.
Of course, it was the movie. It was the film Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction,
that brought it back. But tell us about Mr. Lou.
Well, Mr. Lou is it's an interesting that you asked me about that, because it's one of those songs that a lot of different cultures claim to be theirs. The copyright for Mr. Lou actually belongs to Nicholas Rubanis, the U.S. copyright. They recognize him as being the composer. It's been often said that the melodies in the song date further back and shown improved, and that's fine. What concerned me was that about 3 years ago, a fellow by the name of Dick Dale passed away, and the articles in the U.S. newspapers said, "Composer of Mizulu passes away," and he wasn't even Greek. It turned out. Nice Lebanese, good music, but he wasn't the composer. But this is what we call when we say history being overwritten. And back to a discussion that we had, I think, off camera, was about artificial intelligence, that for students or even the general public, whether they're Greek or not Greek, and they ask a question: when was the first Greek parade? Oh, there's a Greek parade happening. Gee, how long have Greeks been doing this? And the AI response, the Google response, is 1994. And you know that we have film, and I can show you film, and we have newspaper evidence that we have our memories. They were they go back over 100 years, and we're just not doing our history any service by not writing it and burying it. Because you know something, in another 50 years, people are going to say, what happened? Look how forgetful, how quickly we forget things. So this is our storytelling. We need to restore our storytelling. We need the teachers to teach the material, people to develop it. But ultimately, we as a people have to save our stuff. We have to get the word out.
So we live in the era of fake news. This is what you suggest?
Right. And that's why it troubles me that sometimes the organizations that have the money and have the influence, the people don't want to work together. That doesn't make any sense. This battle is way too big. It's a pandemic. When you see, I have friends across the country who are going outside of churches or of businesses. Prodomidis department store, when that went down, and the family had said, no one had gone after the records. I went after them. I had started before the final daughter died. They said, we're not going to throw anything out. And then I have a friend that was picking the trash to get to these valuable records. Friends that pick trash outside of churches. Why? Why do we throw our icons away? Why do we throw so many things? Why do we have this throwaway culture? Why do we want to have a shiny, when we can't appreciate something as beautiful as tradition and how it developed? So that's what this mission is. And I think at someday people will come around, but I hope so. The videotapes of Richard Samorian, over 400 VHS tapes in most of those boxes, the lower boxes. Richard was Armenian, and he recorded Armenian, Greek, and Turkish, the modern kind of Cafe Aman thing that we have still going on, where you could hear a song like Mizulu and hear it sung by Greeks one way and by Armenians, by other people another way, and hear that interplay, that there is still remnants of the Cafe Aman here, at least the music, from the music perspective, and the fact that music does transcend borders. So recorded sound is very important. This collection is also unique in that it's not focused strictly on Greek, because we have the Greek Jewish traditions, we have Italian and Greek traditions, the Kandadis. How can you not study and understand some of that? We have traditions that came from Asia Minor, the roots of Rebetika, how that got started, but also the Asia Minor music, the Cafe Aman music, all of these things. We have Macedonian things here. I have a collection of northern Epirus and Albanian books, and that are very, very good, and they help to connect a lot of history that has been missing. So we receive things sometimes. The other thing that I'm very, very careful with is, if someone calls me and they have something that they want me to take, if it doesn't belong here, I don't take it. I don't have the room, as you can see. I have more stuff that I want to bring in, and people want to send me, and now I have to be selective. But for me to sit on a collection that I'm not going to process, or people aren't going to benefit, just to make my room look full, I mean, that's not where it's at. But if I know that someone is collecting and studying things about the junta or something like that, if there's a big collection, I might send it that way. Seriously, we have to do that. So I think a lot of things are behind doors and behind walls, and the access policies aren't in place. Why they're not there? I guess probably, like, back to what we were saying about how people get their grants and things like that. But it's a big problem. It really is. It's such a beautiful thing. So much more that we can show here that's beautiful. We always face the problem not being able to put all of the material in the same room. This is just a small portion of the records that we have, and to catalog these is it's records that were issued in Greece, and they were issued here. And so the reason they're both aspects are here, it's part of the Greek music in America. That we went through waves of imports coming in, being brought in, whether it's film or recorded sound. So this is a very massive undertaking to catalog everything, figure out what is the best and the best of condition, to put things in archival slips. You know, that's an ongoing process. So this is, and I don't know if you're able to come forward to see, but here in the back is sort of the deeper storage of unprocessed material, special collections, and more things that need processing. I've just run out of room. So we had seen upstairs the collection of Peter Andy's, part of it. And again, it's one of those things, we can't keep everything in the same room. But these particular things I'm keeping here in the Recorded Sound Archive, they have not been digitized yet because they're very special. They're metal discs, and they were issued by Speakerphone, and these were popular in the 20s, mostly from 1920 to 1930.
What material is it?
And so it's oh look, it's Speakerphone of New York. And so there's a series of these discs that they're not labeled, but they look like they've been used. I can't use regular needles on them. You have to use special fiber needles. So there's a.
Can you hold one?
Okay, let me hold one up. So this is the you know, the Speakerphone metal records, and you know, I wanted to just say that collection was so.
Why they made metal?
They didn't have the technology. Wasn't there to do the. I don't know why they did it. To be honest with you, I'm not sure, because it seemed to me that they could have done something else, but they just tried it. It was a fad, you know, like the mini DVDs and things like that. These are his manuscript books, which is interesting because now we have his, you know, his arrangements. So we have his recordings, we have his dance cards, his ephemera, his photographs, and now his manuscripts. So some of these are band arrangements. There's Musolo. Look what it opened up to. And I have recordings from the 30s that I did digitize from him, from the collection, and I can play you some of that. It's very interesting to me. So I try to. I'm keeping this with his recordings now. I think they all have to be related. Someone has to, the next level of processing needs to happen. There are companies that will do the metal discs, but I put out my lemonade stand and I do what I can do. So, you know, the recorded sound, the recordings were also made in cylinder discs, and these are wax discs. And they have the songs around, that sometimes they have the titles of the songs here. They played for, the original disc played for about 2.5 minutes. And they have a little special player with a you know, little horn that you would crank and it would play. And you know, these discs are very valuable as well. So there's a collection of these. I don't know that they appear to me to be English discs, but still, it's very interesting. Anyway, I wanted to show you that while I was looking at